never thought that I would be writing a futuristic werewolf book, but here we are. It is week 10 of Let's Make a Book Baby, where I am taking you all the way from the very start of writing this book until the end when I publish it. This week, I think I really wanted to talk to you more about the characters and where they're at and how I'm working with this process, because it feels very different than my usual, partly because I'm telling you about it. And I think overall I am just feeling more shy, but if I really think about it, you all have responded a lot more positively than I thought. Even when this YouTube channel is really small, I feel like more of you are hearing about it already, keeping up with the project, that I'm doing this. The fact that people are still coming back and knowing about this and commenting and being so supportive is absolutely incredible to me. So thank you. Which, by the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, if you would like to be the 200th subscriber, you have a chance right now. So I'm at 197 subscribers right now, so that will be very interesting to come back and look at this by the end of the project and see where we are by then. I have all the evidence that you want to hear about this. I think I just want to push myself to be more expressive because I feel that limiting my writing right now. So this week, that is what we're doing. I'm telling you more about Ari and Marcus. When I am actually writing them and thinking about them and allowing myself to just sit down and focus for a while, I feel so much more in their headspace and able to focus in my own headspace. And so far this past week, that landed with some really fun and interesting scenarios in the book because yes, I'm writing about werewolves set 27 years in the future, very specifically, which means that it's roughly 2050. So it's kind of a new practice for me that I haven't been used to yet, even though I've written a dystopian book that was supposed to be 10 years in the future, and then a bunch of it ended up being true. So who knows? Maybe some of my ridiculous tech in this silly werewolf book will end up being true. So if you haven't heard about this project already, let me catch you up really quickly. This is a steamy werewolf romance book between two men. Since they are werewolves, it is an Omegaverse book, which means they have different wolf genders on top of their own genders. So Ari is a trans guy and he's also an Omega werewolf. And then Marcus is a cis guy and he's also an Omega werewolf, but he's also gender fluid. So sometimes his gender is beta or alpha also. And I think that's what I'm gonna be really interested in with this book. I feel like I touched on it briefly in the My Shy Alpha series with Noah, because Noah, here he is just a big alpha. He's the shy alpha in the My Shy Alpha series. And the reason why I made him a shy alpha was because I wanted him to subvert what you would expect in an alpha. And it's brought up a lot of interesting conversations in person, even just from the title alone, which I really have enjoyed. Because yes, he still acts like what you would expect from an alpha, but then he doesn't. And it turns out through the series, you get little hints of it from book 1. So this is a minor spoiler, just heads up, skip the next 10 seconds if you don't want to hear this. Noah is also an Omega, but he's in denial. So he's bigender in his werewolf gender, and he hasn't accepted that part of himself. So in his world, he does have this inner conflict between being both an alpha and omega. So Marcus has a different lived experience than that. He is an omega, and that's how he was assigned at birth. So Ari, they can relate on the level of where there is some type of feeling of disconnect with their genders, except Ari's is more of his human gender, that he felt this disconnect when he was young, telling his parents, Noah and Aaliyah,
hey, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy.
And they're like, okay. And so, because they're both part of the queer community, they're bisexual, and they have these differences in their werewolf gender, so they're much more open to that, and I wanted them to be more open to that, so that I could tell Ari's story from a place of security within himself, because I don't feel like I've seen very many trans stories like that. so far, and I think it would be really interesting and healing. Marcus, on the other hand, he has such a huge family, and I am still very interested in telling about characters who have PTSD. If you don't know me, I also have PTSD, or I don't know, PTSD, but that's like not in the DSM, so people don't diagnose that officially, but I would have both if they did. The reason why I like to write about trauma survivors in romance is because of how trauma causes issues around trust. Issues is not the kindest word, I know, but that's how I'm just explaining it to myself in my brain sometimes. These incidents have happened, or they're continuing to happen, and it is breaking my trust in some way or another in some type of relationships, whether that's a relationship with myself. Like, for example, I have a lot of medical trauma, so sometimes I'll feel like a little bit of distrust in the future, in the world, in life, in health. Or it will be, if it's between a person who has done something, then it's like, yeah, I have trouble trusting more than just that person. And I think it's interesting to explore, because with romance, that involves a lot of trust, and there's a lot of potential for harm to be caused when you're giving that trust away. And how do survivors learn how to navigate that? Like, I don't think that we should just be left to not experience love. I like to show characters who are on their own personal journey of healing, and I think Marcus is in that place. But when things happen when we're really, really young, it becomes harder to realize, because sometimes it's just so abstract in the back of your head of being like, hey, this has happened forever ago. Like, it's old news to me, but it did shape how I interact with the world. So I think it's under Marcus's radar, which I haven't really written very much about. He does know he has PTSD. I think he's very falsely assured. I was learning through this chapter that I was really interested in last week. He thinks that he has healed a lot more than he has. So he's going to get an unfortunate wake-up call, because he is a gender fluid wolf, and if he feels any sort of big bias around a certain gender, being raised as an omega, I feel like it makes sense that he would be afraid of alphas still, or majorly distrust them and have these biases about them, because that's a natural protection response. And even if that's part of him, I think that he's still going to have issues with that. That's something that a lot of trans men can relate to. So I'm hoping that by bringing that in with a cis guy, it can also provide that aspect of it, because I think Ari is very confident in being an omega, even if omegas most frequently also identify as being a woman. So I think that he is confident in his identity, and there's going to be a big contrast between him and Marcus, and I think that's very interesting coming from my perspective, where I feel like I understand misogyny, and a lot of Omegaverse stories are about misogyny and trying to show that from a different light. In those books, a lot of cis men, like, if it's usually like the ones that I read, they're usually like between two men. People really liked how cis men could understand misogyny in a way that was like from a lived experience. I really wanted to dive into that and see what we could do to play around with that in this book. It worked well for Marcus, but it's making me uncomfortable. So I think that's where I started to feel more stuck. I started feeling that reserved feeling of my own feeling of like, ooh, this feels like a little vulnerable, even if I'm not writing my personal experiences, but we all go through things and we have similar reactions to things. So I'm able to think of how Marcus would think and write it down. And that sometimes can feel very vulnerable. It's really hard to navigate at times as an author, your own emotions. When you're writing in the moment with that character, like, I personally just focus in so much that I don't even know the last sentence I wrote before this. Like, it's more of just turns into a feeling in my head instead of something super concrete, to where I am just vibing through the emotions and writing down how I'm seeing the scene play out in my head, how I'm seeing the feelings come out, and it will make it feel a lot more emotionally intense for me than it does when I'm actually rereading it back. I think in the first time that I ever write something down, that is the closest I could ever get to reading my book for the first time, like you guys might. So I'm going through my own feels first. And sometimes it feels very intense for me for some reason. I don't know if other people can relate to this, but like I think that's where I was getting a little thrown off this week because I was like so in the zone and so into it, and then I started pulling back all of a sudden. I'm like, huh, not this again. But like I don't think it's actually the book itself this time. It's like me needing a second. And so this week, I wrote this scene where Marcus encounters an alpha who is being genuinely very creepy. He is reaffirmed that he was right about that being creepy. But unfortunately, when those things happen, it's so hard because usually we notice things when we have PTSD more than other people would notice. And then when that gets confirmed to be an actual danger, it can heighten your symptoms for a while. And Marcus is in such a dissonance with himself. He feels this fear around alphas, but his wolf side is actually very alpha-like. And so I'm having fun exploring that, and I think it'll be really interesting because it's going to be through the spicy scenes that Marcus lets his wolf out finally, and Ari kind of coaxes him through that. So I think that's going to be a really cool and interesting dynamic and very entertaining if you like steamy, smutty romance. But for now, I just had to get myself through this week, and I realized I wasn't taking enough breaks. So I started playing Stardew Valley for the first time. I was gonna start playing it on stream soon, so if you want to come hang out on Twitch, I think that would be really fun. I also made Marcus and Ari in The Sims on Twitch this week, and I put them in a house with Noah and Leah, who I'd already made in The Sims, and I have the werewolf pack, and it turned out 1,000 times worse than you can imagine, even if you've played The Sims 4. I play so much of that game, and it recharges my creativity. That's partly why I wanted to do that, but also to involve you all and make these characters I think is fun, just to get a clearer image of them in my head as I'm writing and really think about like, okay, what type of clothes would they wear? How do they wear their hair? And what exactly do their facial features, like their facial structure look like? I had so much fun making them. I'll show you how they both turned out right here. When we put them into a house together, it was chaos. Oh my god. No, not again. Where did Aaliyah go? Oh, she's like, she took a bath. She took a bath because he peed on. Oh no. So I might turn it into a video, just like an extra fun thing for you to watch that aren't on Tuesday or Wednesday, and have it on Saturday or Sunday or something. But I think I want to keep trying to do things like that to where I can take a break, and sometimes we'll write on stream, and sometimes I'll write by myself and come here and just tell you a recap, and that's the only thing I do with writing that week. And otherwise we can just play a game or something, because I think that I need to create more balance in my life with all the things that I'm trying to juggle, and that's going to help me write faster, ironically, even though it feels like I'm slowing down. So that's my goal for this next week. I have something exciting happening, so I'll tell you how that goes. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe here on YouTube. Let's see, what should we do when we reach 2,000 subscribers? Oh wait, sorry. What should we do? What should we do when we reach 200 subscribers? I mean, I hopefully will reach 2,000 too, but like not yet. We have to start at 200. If you have ideas for that in the future, we can talk about that. What type of YouTube situation should I share a little bit of the book? What the heck? I have a dog hair in my mouth. Should I share a little bit of the book with you? I don't know. You tell me what would be exciting. We'll celebrate it somehow. And I hope that you're having a good week and staying safe out there. Take care, and I will talk to you next time. And guess what? I can say goodbye like normal. Bye!